Partners in Ministry, a presentation of Josiah White's Quakerdale Foundation, dedicated to growing ministry support networks, introducing people to a cause that connects with their heart, bringing hope and encouragement to our communities as we seek together to serve as Christ served.
Welcome to Partners in Ministry. My name is Dan Smith, and today I'll be talking with Darlene Fitkin. Darlene is a trauma-informed specialist for Quakerdale Family Services. In this interview, we're going to meet Darlene, hear what God has put on her heart for working at Quakerdale Family Services, and get a peek into the world of mental health and trauma-informed care. Welcome, Darlene, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, I want to welcome you to the team at Quakerdale Family Services. You just started there. Tell us when you first joined.
May 17th was my first day.
So what's the educational background that brought you to this point that you could take on this task?
Well, I started my education back in 1986, and then families, and I would drop my education off. In 2012, I was finally able to seriously go back to school. And during my schooling at Hawkeye, my diversity teacher asked me as a non-traditional student, what was I doing back in school? And when I told him that I was going back to get my teaching degree so that I could at least work as a tutor to help children learn to read and do some math. And he said, no. And I looked at him and he said, you need to go to UNI, get your master's in social work because you're a natural social worker. And I just laughed and I said, UNI is hilly, cold, and windy. And he said, no, you need to go. And so in 2015, I started there with my bachelor's, and it was a fit. And I decided to go ahead and get my master's degree, which in 2017-18 was the first year they offered the trauma-informed credentialing, or where I graduated with my master's as a trauma-informed specialist. And so that's how I arrived here. I worked a lot with immigrants before I actually started into the counseling. But in 2020, I started with counseling. And then in 21, I felt I was supposed to look for a different avenue to work. And that's when I was led back to Quakerdale.
Okay. So when did you first either find out about or start having some sort of a working relationship with either Quakerdale or Quakerdale Family Services? Tell us a little bit about that.
I'm thinking it was right around the 2015, 2016 time. I was in my bachelor's. I was supposed to be working on the campus at Quakerdale as an intern. But due to various situations, that area that I was supposed to work wasn't available to me during the 2016 year. And so I wasn't able to do that, but I was, I guess, introduced to the foundation and that. And then our church became partners with Hope for Healing and worked quite a bit with them throughout the year. And then in 2017-18, when I was working with immigrants quite a bit, became very involved with Quakerdale. We had a family that came into our church that was looking for asylum, and the people they were living with had to move out of state, and they had no means of income, no place to live. Partnering with Hope for Healing and the work that you did through Quakerdale, we were able to support that family for 7 months before they left the country and went to Canada.
Well, that is quite a diverse background and quite a journey educationally. As you look at that, how do you see God using those different things to shape you so that you're able to do what you're doing now?
Well, one, it opened my eyes to the needs of immigrants. We have refugees and we have immigrants. Refugees have a lot of helps. They still need help, but immigrants come usually over on some type of visa grant where they're able to work. They get their green card and start working. And so their need is more learning the culture and a lot of advocacy. So it gave me a lot of compassion for a diverse population, knowing that even in the English language, just because someone is speaking English doesn't mean they have comprehension.
Mm.
And so it's made me, I guess, more sensitive to that also.
Sure. Mental health has really become a really big topic these days, and rightfully so. Specifically, how does trauma-informed care fit in with the overall concept of mental health?
Okay, that what when I go out and when I was applying for different jobs as a therapist, people would say, agencies would say, we're trauma informed. And I said, oh, great. Have you noticed working with the trauma has helped people not go back into behaviors or stay out of the judicial system? And they just looked at me and said, what do you mean? And I said, well, you say you're trauma informed. And they said, well, that just means we're informed that trauma is causing the problems. So what I do and what people are learning more and more to do is look at what's causing the behavior and try to help the people work with that. And that all has to be person to person. And when they're ready, some people just aren't ready to work with that, but at least they know that there's somebody that's compassionate and saying, you're having these behaviors because you're still angry, or you've been hurt, or you've been abused, or something. And if we can help you work through that, then this will lessen. And we have found that in trauma-informed care that as we work with people in their trauma, their diagnosis will go away. So as a trauma-informed specialist, we didn't even study the DSM-5. And so I've come to Quakerdale with still learning a little bit more about the DSM-5 because that's important for billing and then helping people from that point.
Sure. So it sounds like, mental health is something that we all need to be concerned about for ourselves. There isn't any of us that doesn't need assistance with mental health. I think that's the first thing that needs to go away is the stigma that somehow I'm broken or I'm weird or something goofy's happening to me because I need help with mental health. So it sounds to me then that there's a special level of care that happens when someone is experiencing or has been through or hasn't dealt with yet the effects of trauma. And until those are identified and dealt with, you really can't get to the overall arching mental health issues that are going on. And many times it sounds like just dealing with the trauma and helping people work through that brings a well-being to their mental health just with that alone.
Well, yes, because many people have, like I had one client come in and he had to come in because of anger issues. And when I actually did an assessment and asked him about his past, and I said, have you ever dealt with some of this stuff? And he goes, no. And I said, well, are you angry about that? And he goes, of course I am. And I said, okay, let's work on that. And then, as you're working on the things that took place in your past, because Dan, forgiveness is a big part of healing.
Yes.
And that's part of what I help the people reach, that if they can forgive and go to that point also, some of this the total effect will lessen. It doesn't necessarily take away, but I talk to them about the stress, the anger, resentment, bitterness, and how it affects our organs. And if we don't take care of this, we're going to continue to get sick. Our body cannot take that type of wear and tear. So helping them take care of their mental health will also help them take care of their physical health. And, that more and more agencies are working together with the physicians and the psychiatrists to make sure that we're all working working together as a team.
Sure.
And that's what I feel like Quakerdale does too, quite a bit.
Great. Now, there are a lot of different avenues that you could have taken in terms of helping people, all of which are great avenues. But you, for some reason, decided to go through the ministry world at Quakerdale Family Services. What made you to decide to do that, and how are you seeing being able to effectively help people because that you're in a ministry and not just a counseling service?
Well, my original, when I went back to school, because everybody says at your age, you're going back to school. And I knew that I wasn't equipped to deal with everything I was dealing with. So my original reason for going to school was to become more equipped to do ministry through my church. And so it just kind of like full circled around that, yes, Quakerdale Family Services are Christian based. They believe that in the power of God. And, that's what I want. And then working with them in the capacity as an independent counselor, but still having everybody there to help you, that support system. I'm able to do maybe other things. Like today, I was working with the food pantry of our church. I'm able to do that. I'm able to work in that capacity without worrying that I'm in any conflict, because Beth has said, as long as you're doing your work, we don't care what else you do. It's not going to affect Quakerdale. And so as long as our value systems, which we know our value systems will always, at least mine will always be in place.
Sure. So it sounds like ministry really has been the path that you've been on from the very beginning. And what's happened now is that your educational background, the education that you've taken, and some of the life experiences you've had at this point has now enhanced your ability to do ministry even better than what it was before.
Correct.
That's great. That's awesome. Now, for those of people that are familiar with Quakerdale Family Services, they are headquartered out of Wolf Ranch in Marshalltown, Iowa. Now, I know that's not where you are. So tell us a little bit about where you plan to serve. What area are you in?
This is still an interesting process, but I'm working off the campus of Quakerdale in Waterloo, which is right behind People's Clinic. And there's several other, like there's a daycare and a learning center and a couple other things that work with women in transition. And then also Four Oaks is there. So I'm located in the building that I originally worked out of with my 501c3. So God is kind of bringing me full circle around. So in that building, the Quakerdale campus is what I've always referred it to.
Sure. That's on Barclay.
Yes.
Just south of
East
High School, I think. Waterloo East High School is just not too far from you, behind People's Clinic. So it's a great location for being able to work with people, especially with like you said, the diversity of ministries and organizations that are on that campus as well. Works out well. So, if we wanted to stay connected with what you're doing, or if we wanted to try to connect with you and learn more, or the services that you're providing, how would we do that?
Well, you can call me. My cell phone is 319-231-0856. The email for Quakerdale, which is dfitkin@QuakerdaleFamilyServices.org.
Great. Well, Darlene, I just want to thank you so much for joining me today. I can't wait to see what God's going to do through you in the future.
All right. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah. If you've got any questions for Darlene, or if you'd like to learn more about Quakerdale Family Services, as Darlene mentioned, their information's here on the screen. You can also find it on the show notes for this episode on our website, and it's also in the description of this YouTube video. So once again, thank you, Darlene, and thank you for joining me today. Until next time, let's get out there and serve as Christ serves.
This has been a presentation of Partners in Ministry, a podcast of Josiah White's Quakerdale Foundation. To learn more and see the show notes for this and other episodes, visit our website. To stay informed of up and coming broadcasts, subscribe to our e-newsletter. To invest in our mission, donate today.